Hello and welcome to Undercommon Taste. This is a podcast where we create and discuss homebrew content for tabletop RPGs.
I'd spare you all the details, but that'd defeat the purpose of telling you a story.
I'm Ian Woodworth, I'm joined by my co-host James Daly, and today we are also joined by returning guest Sam Leigh, who is here to talk about her new game that at the time of release came out yesterday. So, Sam, welcome back to Undercommon Taste.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. I'm super excited.
Oh yes, you were a super fun guest. We're really glad to have you back.
I had a great time chatting, so I'm delighted.
Yeah, and we've spent about 15 minutes just chatting before we decided, we should really turn on the mics and actually start recording this.
Yeah, let's hit the record buttons, everybody.
So, again, welcome back. So let's go ahead and, before we get too far involved, because I have had a habit of forgetting to do this the last few guests we've had on, can you give us just a brief introduction, who you are, the things that you do, and this new game that you've got, Death of the Author?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Sam Leigh. I am a tabletop game designer publishing under Blinking Birch Games. I mostly write solo games like Anamnesis and Outliers, but I also do some editing work and some guest writing for other projects as well.
Yeah, we had Eco on a few weeks ago.
Eco's great.
He is. Yeah, he was also a returning guest.
Yes.
But we had him on whenever The Lost Bay was just wrapping up. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I remember that you were one of the editors, and you also contributed one of the adventure modules for The Lost Bay.
That was one of the most unhinged things I've ever written, actually. It's called The Parabyte, and it's a haunted Tamagotchi.
I love it.
It was written as an instruction manual for this.
Yeah, I love everything about that.
It was so much fun to write. Yeah, it was kind of that horror comedy vibes going on. It was really fun.
And we brought up during that interview talking about how had the Tamagotchi come out a couple years later than it did, whenever the forum boards and stuff on the early internet were really sort of picking up, that there would have been so many Tamagotchi creepypastas out there.
Absolutely.
And that this would have fit into that perfectly.
Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. Those would be fun. I'd read those.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up Outliers. Outliers being the last game that you successfully backed and published. I am eagerly awaiting my copy to arrive.
Oh, great.
Yeah, because I think Mark's was just finishing up the mailing list a week or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
I remember going in and filling out the final questionnaire to make sure that my mailing information was right.
Oh, great. Game was so much fun to write, too.
Yeah, I'm eagerly awaiting that one to arrive.
Yeah, Outliers was really fun. I wrote it as the creator in residence with Far Horizons Co-op, and so I worked with a team. I had worked with Marks before. They edited Anamnesis, but aside from Marks, everybody else I worked with, our partnership was new. We hadn't worked together before, and it was so fantastic. Everybody did an incredible job, and I think actually today the annotated version was released. We decided to do kind of a designer's commentary version. So it has some notes from me about how my experience as a research assistant impacted the writing of the game, and then also a couple of little notes from other members of the crew as well.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, playing off of that, what were your sort of inspirations for this game, Death of the Author? Is that drawing, again, from personal experiences? Is it drawing from media, a combination of the two?
Sure.
Or something else entirely?
The original idea of it is that I wanted to write an anamnesis hack, honestly. I really wanted to try my hand in using the same system and seeing what I could make out of it that was new, and also kind of see how I can modify some of the original mechanics in Anamnesis into something a little bit new. And so I really was inspired to create this story about a character trying to fight for agency in their story. And that's partially because I have a lot of little characters, as I'm sure that many people who listen to this do. And sometimes I think about what would they think if they knew they were in a story? What would they say to me? What would that conversation look like? And so this is kind of an exploration of that in a way. And it's just a topic. I really like meta narratives for stuff. I really like it when media breaks the fourth wall. And so this game is just generally in my interests, that topic. So it was also me playing around with that as well.
Now, see, when I first saw the pitch for this game, it reminded me there's a Will Ferrell movie, and for the life of me, I can't remember the title.
Stranger Than Fiction. I was literally about to bring this up.
Yeah, where he sits there and he finds out that the author's going to kill his character off, so he's sitting there trying to convince the author not to. Yes, Stranger Than Fiction. Perfect. If you've got more to throw in on that.
It is my favorite Will Ferrell movie of all time, simply because I'm not a fan of Will Ferrell's real over-the-top comedy. Movies like Elf and Talladega Nights, I don't like that flavor of comedy.
Okay.
I'm going to have to burn down your house for that heresy, Ian. I love both. Those are the two Will Ferrell movies that I actually like.
Well, you can just go home and watch them by yourself then.
Heresy detected is all I've got to say.
But yeah, so the basic conceit is that, there's this author who is struggling to get the next book out. She's past due on her next novel. Her publisher is really pushing for her to finish. And so she decides to start over and with a whole new draft. And as she's writing, unbeknownst to her, there's a person somewhere who is hearing her prose, her narrative, as she is narrating his life in his head.
Oh, great.
And so he thinks he thinks he's going crazy. And then B, he thinks, just in case I'm not going crazy, I need to figure out who this is that is writing this story about me. So I can find her and convince her not to murder me at the end of the book.
Yeah. That is extremely up my alley. Somebody had recommended that to me recently and I forgot about it when I was starting to talk about Death of the Author. So I have to go and watch that for sure.
Yeah, when I was in high school, the local newspaper had a teen page where different teenagers from different high schools in the area would write articles and movie reviews and stuff. And I actually went and watched Stranger Than Fiction and wrote a movie review for the newspaper.
That's great.
And yeah, it is hands down my favorite Will Ferrell movie of all time.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I gotta watch it then, for sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't get I don't think it gets the appreciation that it should because it's not a Will Ferrell over-the-top, almost slapstick sort of comedy.
Yeah, he is somewhat typecast.
Yeah, well, a lot of that is his own writing, too, so you can't really say he's too typecast. But it just... Seeing him pull out a little more of the dramatic side of his acting chops, it really just works so very well.
But I think this kind of gives a good idea of, Death of the Author. And so it is going to be a solo RPG where you're kind of working the character. And for our listeners that may have missed a couple things and what's a solo RPG? How would you explain that?
I would say that it is a game that is specifically designed to be played by only one person. So you don't need a GM, you don't need other players. It's just one person who is reading the game and playing the game. So some games are designed to be one person or more. They might be designed for 1 to 4 people because there are ways to play the game single player that are built into the system. But if something kind of is advertising itself as a solo game, usually it is specifically for one player.
And I really like these concepts of a game. When I first heard about a solo RPG, I had a little bit of a challenge wrapping my brain around it first because, it's an RPG with people
sure.
or, a video game. But I really like these, especially if you're a newer DM or if you're a DM kind of hitting that writer's block. These are great ways to work on that skill of kind of just off the cuff, that improv that a lot of DM or even players need. And even beyond that, I am a huge fan about gaming and education, and these would make amazing writing prompts for creative writing, storytelling, this kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I even just love there's a bunch of games too that are specifically there to help you create different things, help you create a map, help you create a character. So if you are GMing a campaign for a bunch of people or a long-running thing, you can also play solo games in order to give you ideas for your campaign.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've been working my way through the Solo But Not Alone 4 bundle.
Oh, cool.
And I've been having a lot of trouble making myself pick up the next game and keep going. There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of games in this bundle.
Yeah.
And I've gotten a little bit bogged down. I'm finally hitting a point where I can start really devoting some time and getting back into that.
Nice.
But there have been several games that I've run into that I get to it and I'm working on it and I'm realizing this can be played by yourself, but this game is asking for you to interact with other players. It is underlying this veneer of a solo game that it really just wants you to reach out and play with somebody else. It really needs another creative person there to bounce ideas off of. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I really like games that are specifically designed to be played only by one person, because that way there isn't that feel that you're having to play multiple roles.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. You know that, like, this system was designed to give you the tools that you need on your own, rather than being, like, kind of an add-on solo thing. Which, I should say, there's plenty of solo modifications to games that are very, very good. But there is something to be said for one that's, like, completely designed to be solo.
Absolutely.
One of the ones that I've run into recently, one that Kat was really excited about, is a Bumble, where you're basically playing as a bumblebee and you're mapping out, you're creating a hex map of where all the flowers are and where all the hazards are, and you have to figure out how to get around the hazards to collect the pollen, to feed the hive. But there's a part of the game after your bumblebee gets back to the hive where your bumblebee has to do its little bumblebee dance.
Amazing. Love that.
To describe to the other bumblebees in the hive where the flowers are. Mm-hmm. And then you have to roll to see how many bumblebees are actually paying attention to you. And then there are, like, different steps that you have to do. And I'm like, this entire mechanic is just begging to be a party game.
Yes.
Okay.
It is begging to have the person who is controlling this particular bumblebee has to, once they get back to the hive, get up and do the interpretive dance. And every other player has to write down the steps and see if they got them right.
I'd love that. That's really fun.
Yeah. That's what the mechanic is. It's just screaming to me that this is how it's supposed to be played. Uh-huh. And you can't do that when you're playing by yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, there are dice rolls to determine all of that, but this is something that really needs to be more organic. It just loses some of the magic whenever it's all boiled down to just a die roll.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But we have Death of the Author, and so this is a single. It was designed for a single person to sit down and explore and enjoy. So how do the mechanics of this game work?
So they're very similar to Anamnesis in a lot of ways, but for anybody who isn't familiar with either, it basically uses tarot cards primarily. So there are 5 acts. In Death of the Author, they're called chapters. And in each of these chapters, you use tarot cards to draw different scene prompts. And so these are prompts for scenes that are written by the author. And then where this differs from Anamnesis is that the prompts are slightly different whether they are upright or reversed. It might just be that a couple of words have been changed in the prompt. And as the character, every chapter, you have a couple of powers that you can use to gain more control over the narrative. And those let you either flip the card over, so if the card was upright, but you like the reversed option better, you can use your reversal to flip it and make it reversed, or to actually rewrite part of the prompt.
Ooh, nice.
By completely rejecting either option. And so this kind of lets the character try to take back more control over the story, but then the author will draw a major arcana card to determine how they respond to their story being changed. And kind of like, if the character has written in something entirely different, it might go the way that the character wants it to. The author might end up using those words against them. It really depends on what the author wants out of the story and what the relationship between the character and the author is like. In a way, even though the game is written as though you are playing the character, you kind of also are playing the author, which isn't explicitly said in the text, but you very quickly figure out as you play that even though you are your kind of protagonist in a way of the story is the character, and you are playing as them, and you're kind of rooting for them, you're also crafting the story from the author's perspective as well.
Yes, I like this. This is almost like the single-player version of Dwarf Fortress, which actually should be coming out here in a week or two, I think. That is. But I mean, Dwarf Fortress, and that's where you set up a world and you have all your dwarves doing their individual things. But a great thing about that particular game is you can click on each dwarf and they have their whole history and story. And for this, you actually get to generate and let your character try to turn or sway or generate their own story as well. And I'm just saying my character would absolutely be wearing the shirt that says, "I reject your reality and substitute my own." Absolutely wearing the shirt.
That's definitely like, for sure, Death of the Author line. Definitely.
Yeah. So we have had the luxury of getting a chance to look at the playtest document in advance of the game's release, and I started working my way through it a little bit earlier today. Didn't have time to get all the way through, but I have to say that just as with Anamnesis, this is spot on my flavor of solo game. This sort of solo journaling game. And what I really like about it is that the prompts are open enough, but they're not too open to create that sort of analysis paralysis sort of thing. And they're not too narrow to feel like it's trying to railroad and guide the story. So I guess my question is, how do you figure out how open or how concise to make a prompt? What is that happy middle ground for you? How do you find that?
It can be tricky sometimes. I think in the case of Death of the Author, which was also similar to Anamnesis, I really wanted the game to be genre agnostic. When I first started writing Death of the Author, some of the prompts led towards certain genres. So for example, there was a prompt that was like, you find a door that leads to another world. And then the reversed side of that prompt might be, you find a door that leads to a secret room. So depending on which prompt, like depending on whether the card was upright or reversed, you might find yourself leaning towards a certain genre because the author is writing in a certain genre. But I realized that in playing the game, a lot of players, once they kind of figure out the nature of their story, it would probably feel kind of like a wrench in it, or like it doesn't really fit what they're trying to do, to just have the genre go in a completely different direction. And the thought of like the character reversing the prompt just to avoid that kind of discord between like the current story and what the prompt is felt bad. So I rewrote some stuff and ultimately tried to make the prompts ones that are pretty open in terms of genre. So Death of the Author is meant to be sci-fi, fantasy, horror, whatever type of story your author is telling. And I tried to make it so that none of the prompts conflicted with that type of story. So it was tricky at times. I actually did go onto TV tropes and like looked at certain tropes that tend to come up a lot in media, and I pulled some of the prompts from there. And other than that, it was a lot of just like thinking about story beats that are typically seen and how to form those into a prompt because they are applicable in so many ways.
No, I love the TV tropes. They do work with a lot of things. And as I said before, I think as open-ended as it is and as well as everything meshes, I think this would be really good for like a creative writing prompt. And while this is a solo game, you could, like, if you were in a drama club and like, again, working like with an improv group, these would be great prompts to like, and here is a spin on your story, and it doesn't completely break the story, but it does stop, and now you have to kind of go and reevaluate. And life is like that. I mean, yeah, like you're walking down the street, and life happens sometimes, and, you know, what you plan to do and what actually happens is rarely ever the same thing. And so this definitely has that, and then suddenly very much aspect to it, which I appreciate very much.
Yeah, I wanted it to, again, this kind of like the way in which you are playing both the character and the author, I wanted to make sure that the character gets pulled into directions that they aren't expecting or that they might not want to go, while still allowing for the author to create a narrative that works, that actually flows like a story does, rather than jumps around too much. So that was kind of part of the balance with the prompts, for sure.
I'm just saying, the person who's pulling my cards, that you can like take a break for just a moment or two, so we catch my breath. I'm not ready for the next act yet. We're good.
Right. So one element, and I believe that this was also true of Anamnesis, is that while the game does use the major arcana cards, and in this case it is primarily to generate characters, if I'm reading this correctly. While they are being utilized, you don't really have anything in the game sort of defining what each of the major arcana are. Was that an intentional move? Were you trying to leave it open for the player to sort of interpret from the card whether they want to use the common major arcana meanings or not? Is that sort of how you were wanting to leave it open, or was it just like a page count? So, because I know that happens a lot.
Sure, yeah.
That certain things have to get cut to make the page count work.
No, it was an intentional choice. I think it's something that a lot of people liked about Anamnesis, where you draw a major arcana on each prompt to help inform the nature of the prompt, to give you some like creative inspiration. So I wanted to emulate that as well in Death of the Author. So the major arcana cards are pretty much up to however you want to interpret them. And I feel like that's the whole benefit of using tarot in a game, because the cards themselves tell such a story. And I feel like to draw a tarot card and be told exactly what it means, you could just substitute that for playing cards if you wanted to. So I really like the player being able to put their own interpretations on things. The minor arcana don't do that as much, because those are mostly for the prompts. But the major arcana for both Death of the Author and Anamnesis are giving the player a lot of creative freedom, while still hopefully providing enough inspiration just from the card itself to give you a spark to start from.
Okay.
No, that's great. I love it.
So, Death of the Author, not as of recording, but as of release, has just gone live on BackerKit.
Yes.
We talked with another creator a few months ago who also created a project on BackerKit, and I was just wanting to pick your brain as to why you decided to go with BackerKit as opposed to Kickstarter for this particular project.
Sure. I have been intending to move away from Kickstarter for a while. Outliers was on Kickstarter, and that was partially because it was published with Far Horizons. But for my own personal projects where I'm like fully in charge of all of the crowdfunding, I've been really wanting to move away from Kickstarter as a platform, mostly just because of some of the decisions that Kickstarter has made over the last few years. They've kind of put a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. Their AI policy is not great for AI-generated content, and they kind of screwed over some creators during, I think it was Zine Quest 2022, where they pushed it back by months at the last minute. So there's been some stuff over the years that has made me just want to find a different platform. And part of it too is that I really think that diversifying crowdfunding sources is really important, because not every platform is going to work for everybody, and being able to get eyes on other platforms just helps other creators fund who might not be able to access those platforms. So BackerKit, the reason why I went with BackerKit specifically, I did do fulfillment, or I did the pledge manager through BackerKit for the Anamnesis Kickstarter, and I really liked it. I didn't have any complaints. And I also really like how BackerKit has been interacting with creators. I've had a couple of one-on-one calls with them where they reached out and was like, hey, if you have any questions. And I'm like, actually, I would love to pick your brain on stuff. And I've talked to them for like an hour, just asking questions about the platform. They've seemed very communicative. And I also really like their policy on AI-generated content a lot more than Kickstarter. They've cracked down on it more in ways that are a little bit more realistic than with Kickstarter. So I appreciate that. So yeah, it's basically my first time. I did do a round of itch funding for Anamnesis way at the beginning. So that was, I guess if we're talking about like what all platforms I've crowdfunded on, then technically also Itch.io. But BackerKit is the only other platform other than Kickstarter that I will have tried that is actually like designed for crowdfunding. So yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes. But so far I've had a pretty good experience with it.
Yeah, that was pretty much what Josh from Lone Colossus Games, those were largely his view is more towards the AI policies.
Yeah.
The AI art. Mm-hmm. I can talk, I promise.
Yeah, that's a big one for sure.
Yeah, he really didn't like how prevalent AI art has become on Kickstarter platform-wide, and he was trying to get away from that, and that's the main impetus that led him to go to BackerKit.
Nice.
Yeah, everything I've been hearing about BackerKit sounds really amazing, and I'm looking forward to us finally getting a project or two of our own ready to the point where we can start trying to crowdfund, so...
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me know when you do. I want to hear about it for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. I know with my art classes, particularly the end of the semester, the teachers are like, hey, your semester's over, but keep doing your work, keep going, because you'll have other artists, and, it's competitive, and, especially if, you're a graphic artist, it's a highly competitive field, and, all of them are like, and AI is coming to get you. I mean, basically, AI is, and through the art department, it has become a very scary thing because this is people's livelihoods and AI is just swooping on all of it. And so I like that BackerKit is saying no to AI generated projects. Skynet, don't kill me, but you can go play in your own field over there. That's fine. You make some pretty stuff. I get it, but we want to back human created things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And this may seem like a controversial point, but I can see applications where AI can be useful. I just don't feel like it is a tool that should be used to create a final product.
Yes.
I'm fine with, using it as sort of like an idea generation tool, some way to mash disparate concepts together and see what sort of things fall out that you can take inspiration from. But I don't like being able to get to a point where all you need to create good visual art is knowing how to construct a prompt.
But see, again, coming back to Death of the Author, this kind of prompts, though, where it's just a little bit and it gives the brain just enough to run with. I think that is the beauty. And you don't need AI for that. You have these prompts and you can kind of go. And yeah, even as a creator, if you're in a rut, or as a writer or a storyteller, and you find yourself doing the same thing, and you give yourself a prompt like in Death of the Author, where you're going, and now you're pulling a random card that has something pre-writ, but it's completely outside of your rut that you would normally, the pattern that you're following, it makes your brain stretch, and those are beautiful sparks of inspiration. And I would far prefer that than something AI generated. Yes, AI is a good tool for that, but I think even for that, hey, let's break out of our patterns and come up with something new, something like Death of the Author is a great tool for that.
Well, I think I have exhausted my questions for now. James, you got anything else?
No, I think I'm good. I'm really excited. I love how this is going. I think this is going to be really fun to sit down and play. This is a really good tool. I could see a lot of journaling RPGs. This would be a lot of fun as well. Kind of getting that, like I said, if you feel like you need to knock off the cobwebs of your writing or your play style, I really think this is going to be fun and a great tool for stretching horizons, which I'm really excited about.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited. I've gotten some really good playtest feedback recently, and I'm excited to kind of dive back in and make some tweaks and see how the kind of final product of it shapes up.
All right, so getting back in the vein of non-AI generated prompts, where we've reached the end of the interview, now we're going to go into that part that we all love so much, which is where we can concoct some nightmare fuel with our Monster Mashup.
I'm so excited.
It's time.
It is that time. So, Sam, if you are ready and willing, go ahead and give me a D4 for locomotion.
Okay, here we go.
Chugga, 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 chugga.
That's a 4.
A 4. It swims.
Okay. Yep, good start.
Okay.
I'm just
Next. No, go ahead.
thinking about the when people talk about like monsters in water. I always think about the Amnesia water monster. Either of you guys played that horror game?
No.
No.
It's
not
like
familiar.
the most terrifying part. You can't see anything. You're just in the water and you know that there's something else there.
Yay, swamp puppies.
All right. Next is a D6 roll for what does it eat?
Okay. That's a 3.
A 3. It eats insects/vermin.
Okay. Okay.
I could see something like a large, almost like a baleen filter feeder.
Ooh.
Or it could be something small and predatory. I mean, it doesn't have to be huge. We haven't done size yet, so
Yeah.
we could go either direction with that one.
Yeah, we'll be curious about size. I've been playing the video game Grounded with my family, which is basically Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really fun. You're playing all these kids who are like ant-sized running around a backyard, but there's a pond in it that has this big koi fish.
Okay.
And it can just like swallow you whole. And so
Nice.
I'm like, that's kind of where my brain is going right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of where my brain was going too. Is fish sort of area.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, we could go like amphibian or like even like the dragonfly nymphs. Those are creepy, but yeah.
Mm.
Or even crustacean. I mean, it'd sit there and go and just kind of have giant pincers. And, yeah,
Crustacean's fun.
We still have lots of options, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to narrow down a lot of our options here with another D6 roll for size.
Okay.
Is it bigger than a bread box?
That's a 5, so maybe.
It's huge.
Okay.
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 Again, all of our options still work. We could have a giant fish or a huge amphibian or like some sort of, what is it? The lobstrosities from the second Dark Tower book?
Yeah, from the Dark Tower books.
Monstrosities?
Yeah.
I have not heard of these, but my brain is
check?
still on
Did it
crustaceans, so.
Yes.
What was that, Ian?
Did a check? Did a chum?
The sound, they're basically like 4 or 5 foot size, like crustaceans that walk the beach and they like snip off limbs and eat things.
Oh.
And, yeah,
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Delightful. I do think giant crustacean is fun. I don't know if it necessarily looks like a normal one though. I don't think it just like looks like a normal lobster or something. But the kind of shell of a crustacean, that's interesting to me.
Okay.
You know, if we wanted to get sort of bizarre, have it be like a giant horseshoe crab.
Oh, I love a horseshoe
yes.
crab. Yes.
Yes.
I love those little guys.
Just to make it something that is not that overtly over-aggressive feel that you get so often with these sort of creatures.
I will always go, whenever we talk anything chitinous or insect or crustacean, I will always reference the Zerg. And I mean, you have some that look fairly innocuous that are terrible, and then you have some that are just pure nightmare fuel, but yeah, very much. I am in this boat. I am definitely, yeah.
I don't know the Zerg.
They were like this insectoid hive mind species that they evolved whenever they consumed something. They would take its DNA and pull it into the hive to further mutate and adapt because they were seeking genetic perfection.
Okay.
And so they were very adaptable, very mutable. And so, yeah, they were like just nightmare fuel. They were wonderful.
Well, I love a hive mind too. So definitely that's on the table.
It's a StarCraft reference.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So we can see if we're going to have a hive mind because the next roll is a D8 for social organization.
Great. Okay. Here we go. That's a 6.
A 6. Gang. 11 to 25 individuals.
Ooh. And they're giant?
Yeah. So I could see them working with almost like a small swarm. So yeah, you could almost have a hive mind and they could just be a pod of these things.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
Again, they can get giant, but especially if we're going crustacean, they don't necessarily start that way. So it's how fast do they molt? Like, you know, spiders, whenever they molt, they get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Maybe there's like members of this pod that are like a lot smaller than...
Oh, yeah.
They're kind of... The size ranges a lot. Maybe when a member of the... Actually, no, because they usually don't... You know how there's some where they have to like use things as their shells?
Yeah, like the hermit crabs?
Yeah, what if these actually do that? And so in their like hive mind colony, they have like when the older ones pass away, the younger ones will like grow into their shells.
Okay.
I like it. Maybe they like each individually kind of do like a whole like Voltron mech type thing and they control aspects of it as they're growing into the larger shell.
Oh.
So you have like 4 or 5 of them, but they're all working in unison as a single unit.
That's wild, and I love it.
The other thing I was thinking is, have you ever seen those like wonderfully fuzzy spiders?
Yes.
And you go to squish them, and they just, with like thousands of babies everywhere, because it was just the babies on the adult back.
Awful. Yeah. The worst. Yeah.
Arachnophobe trigger warning, sorry.
Yeah. So where I was thinking of going was that it would be sort of an adult and their brood.
Okay.
And as the brood grows and ages and matures, once they get to a certain size, they would split off to go and spawn their own brood. Mm-hmm. And so it's always this one big one with all of these little ones around it.
I like that.
Yep, we got fuzzy spiders. Okay.
Yes.
But they're horseshoe crabs, so they're not fuzzy.
Yes. Well, they're fuzzy because they look like all the babies are on the back.
Potentially.
The idea that, like, when they travel, the little ones are on the big one's back for faster travel across, like, the ocean floor, that's extremely good. I do really like that visual.
Yeah, it's almost like a cluster of grapes just sort of walking
Yeah.
across the bottom of the ocean.
Like a possum.
Yeah, I was thinking of possum.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I love those guys. Great.
Okay, let's keep going. Next up is a D10 roll for native environment.
Okay. All right. That is a 9.
A 9. Can you give me a D6 roll, please?
Oh, boy. Okay. Oh, dropped that one. That's a 1.
A 1. Its native environment is a swamp.
Yes. Good.
Okay.
Phenomenal.
I'm liking it.
Very swimmable.
Yeah. What if
Yeah.
these things hang off like leeches?
Ooh.
And they can attach, and maybe that's how they feed on other things. I mean, they feed on vermin too. So they're smaller. Maybe like when they're baby, they feed on the kind of leech and they latch on, and that is like, or like a hagfish or a lamprey or a remora type.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
But again, too, vermin and insects and stuff, a swamp is perfect for that. As far as prey type.
What if the young basically effectively parasitize the parent?
Oh, yes.
Also
yes,
good.
I love it. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why they're, all attached to the outside, is they are drawing their nutrition from the parent as the host until they are large enough to fend for themselves.
Okay, I like it.
Very good. Yes. Fantastic.
Okay. All right. Next up is a D12 for method of defense.
Okay.
So before you roll that real quick, I'm seeing this thing like as it shambles and you've got like a dozen of these baby horseshoe crabs on the sides. Just imagine like, it wouldn't be like Jingle Bells, but it'd be like kind of grady, clatty, clattery, almost like the hoof rattles as it walks.
Ooh, I bet there's like local legends about
absolutely,
it. Or
yeah.
like warnings where it's like if you hear this sound of like clattering to steer your boat away because it's around the corner. Yeah. That was a 5 on the die.
A 5. Okay. Interesting. Burning chemical farts/spray a la stink bugs or skunks.
That makes sense. That's
Very
how they
swampy.
burrow through. It's swampy. That is how they burrow through the parent or the host's shell to get into whatever the viscera or the blood flow or whatever that would be. So they have to be able to penetrate that chitin, and that's how they do that.
I like that. So all these like versions of this creature that have lived for like really, really long have like a ton of these little puncture holes in their shell. Like it's just scattered with them.
They're like these big pock marks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how much body horror do we want here?
Oh, all of it.
Okay, so because I'm not going Botfliesian, but what if those pockmarks, like they get like pustules and stuff, so they're up and they're oozing, and they could be brightly colored or just generally oozing once they come off, so they have that kind of very irritated look to them, or even they would like burn and smoke after they come off because you have that chemical burn aspect to it.
Maybe the chemical interacts poorly with the air above the swamp, so they
combusts?
What was that?
I was thinking, so it like oxidizes quick, so it almost like starts combusting when it mixes with the actual air.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So like that's one of the reasons why they stay underwater most of the time, because anytime they do surface, it's probably not unpainful with all the different pockmarks.
Or they stay coated in mud.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. Yeah.
Have some sort of algae or slime, maybe that is, symbiotic with them to help keep them covered. Have you ever seen a pumice stone? Like
No.
one of those lava rocks that has all the holes in it. They can float on the surface of the water.
Oh,
but they're
okay.
like a lava rock and they're filled with holes just because, all the gas escaped out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what an ancient one of these things look like.
That's cool. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, to the point where, if you have a truly ancient one and you're out and there's a little bit of a breeze, you can hear, this eerie whistling noise as it passes over.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's we're talking about local legends, right? It's the clattering is turn around, your steer a boat away. They might not bother you because they don't feed on people, but still, right?
If you hear it scream, though, run.
Yeah, because that one's been alive for long enough that it's learned a few tricks, and that is not a good sign for anyone nearby.
Yeah.
That could be a thing, too, for the larger ones, kind of make them like sandworms, so when the young do detach, because they do come up to the surface, and we've talked to, this will react with the oxygen. Maybe it is a violent, flammable type explosion, almost like a small eruption. So maybe the water starts boiling and they come up, and then you hear all this noise as it's shaking because the young are detaching.
Oh,
and then
cool.
you've got the air flowing through, so it starts screaming, and then it just gouts this chemical out.
Horrifying. I love that. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it surfaces, and then the mature ones that aren't able to hold on sufficiently because their own body mass is too large now, they just get ejected, and you just hear these pops.
Yeah, they're like cicadas, they're just everywhere.
Gross. Yeah, that's very fun.
All right. Now we might throw a monkey wrench in and
Okay.
completely ruin everything we've done.
It's great.
Now we need another D12 roll for creature type.
Oh, fascinating. Okay. Where did my D12 go? Here it is. All right. That's a 1.
This works. It's an aberration.
Oh,
Perfect.
yeah. Beautiful.
Perfect.
Beautiful. Excellent. I love these guys. I'm these are great.
So this is a creature from the far realms, which explains why it has such this bizarre morphology going on.
I wonder, too, if they are, almost exponentially reproducing.
Yeah, the larger it is, the more young it has.
Yeah. And, each of those young spawn many other young. I wonder if, one of them at one point crawled from, the far reaches, and now they're kind of almost an invasive species in this swamp as they, continue to multiply.
It was probably a cult. It was probably
Oh,
a
yeah.
wizard. A wizard in a cult just
course.
summoned something that ate all of the cultists, and
Yeah, no, I could see this too, because we're saying it eats insects and vermin, and we are making this very chitinous, so it could well fall under that too. So maybe they do eat their own young to a point. Again, it'd be like when you get guppies in a fish tank, they do cannibalize the smaller ones often. Or other insects will cannibalize their young sometimes because they are so prolific with their breeding.
So what I'm seeing with this is a brood, a clutch of eggs for one of these things would be 100 eggs.
Oh, gosh.
And the ones that attach are the ones that managed to hatch and attach themselves before they could be eaten.
I like that.
Yeah.
And the reason why they're there and attached is because of the shape of this creature. It just can't reach them. And so it has no way to dislodge them once they get attached to their carapace.
I like it.
That's perfect. Yeah, I bet they also are kind of like horseshoe crabs, where if you were to flip them over, they'd really have a hard time. So they can't really just kind of flip over to scrape them off very easily, or else it might take a little bit to get back on your right side.
No, I love it.
Yeah. Okay, next is a D20 roll for quirks.
Okay. Ooh, this will be a fun one. 2.
2. Mimic is able to appear as another creature common in the environment.
Oh no. That would also explain the invasive species-ness of it.
Yeah.
Maybe if there are people local to this environment, they hunt at least some of the smaller ones.
Okay.
But maybe they're hard to find because they're hard to distinguish from other creatures.
I could also see how the young attach could make the... you have the parental unit and then the young, and so depending on how they attach, they could look like another creature that way as well. Maybe not intentionally, but they do look like other things at times, and so like there's like 4 or 5 different configurations that this thing could come across as.
Yeah, like life stages, sort of.
Yeah. Maybe the young look a lot different than the adults do. And so maybe I could also see a situation where the adult kind of blends into the swamp water a little bit more, and then the young don't, but look kind of close to other type of crustaceans here or other fishes here.
Well, I'm thinking, even if we're keeping the horseshoe crab body shape, but depending on how the young attach, maybe it looks like the eyes of an alligator when it's coming up over the water.
Oh, that's cool.
Or maybe it looks like, if they're all more in a line, maybe they look like a large, like a pike fish or something like that. And so depending on how the young attach, it looks like different things.
Oh, like the orientation of them on the shell.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I really like that.
So the mental image that I was getting is that the young from a distance kind of look like turtles.
Ooh, yes.
Because they would have that same general round sort of domed shape.
Mm-hmm.
And so with an especially large adult, because, swamps aren't always very deep.
Mm-hmm.
And so it could be burrowed down into the mud and still have like 3 or 4 feet of carapace sticking up out of the water. And so if you don't know what you're looking for and you see it, it might just look like, half a dozen turtles sunning on this island.
Oh,
cool.
I would totally get killed because I don't want to go play with the turtles and this thing would come up.
Oh, same.
And yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. I love that. Maybe their carapace have like different patterns on them too. Maybe like each pattern is unique. And so in that way, maybe they even more look like a turtle.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if you've got this, volatile oxidizing chemical burst as things break out,
Oh, yeah.
I could definitely see that scarring and coloring in different ways.
Oh, that's a cool idea. Like it's almost like the burn mark is kind of different on each one of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
Right. Okay. So now we make it weird.
Because we weren't there yet.
We weren't there yet.
Not at all, yeah. I see these every Tuesday.
So, if you would please, a D100 roll.
Oh, boy. Okay, great. All right. Let me get my percentile die. Okay. That is 51.
51. Interesting. Okay. Can be used in lieu of currency in the local economy.
Whoa.
Each individual is worth 1d10 gold.
I could see maybe these have an average lifespan, and so you do find the husks of these things, or as they shed and molt, maybe the husks, if within, like a sand dollar. And so these things kind of shed, and they do like beach combing to find the husks of these things for currency.
That's cool.
Yeah, I can see that.
It'd be very much like a conch shell or a sand dollar or a lot of the beach combing societies.
Maybe this is because I've been watching a lot of Dungeon Meshi, but I like the idea that the husks are actually, that they make really good cooking equipment, like good bowls or pots to like cook things in.
Yeah, again with that sort of turtle shell, tortoise shell sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It would have to be, those would have to be the big ones. They'd have to be manufactured again where they've been pierced so frequently.
Oh, that's true.
But I could see where they could break them down, and maybe the underside is like an abalone shell, so they're decorative. And so you can cut them down. Mm-hmm. Or maybe the underside of the shell is just like the mother of pearl, and so you can use it for like an inlay. And the outside's all, janky and gross looking, but the inside's really, really pretty.
I like that too. Mm-hmm.
But I'm also seeing that, because we have that burning chemical spray, I want to say that the very young, the very small ones, it would be risky, but you could harvest them specifically for that.
Yeah.
Oh.
That they would be a consumable resource for whatever purpose. Maybe for a particularly caustic ingredient for preparing hides, like stripping the last of the flesh and the membrane off of hides to make leather. things like that. Something along those lines.
I like that. Or especially if you've gotten the smaller ones just after like their first or second molt, where they've not reproduced themselves, so their carapace is whole and intact. And again, they do have that volatile oxidizing stuff, but largely the shell holds, and so maybe they are used. Maybe they have like a flame resistance, so maybe you can use them as like an armor or something like that, or even like at that point, it would make a good cooking surface. I mean, if you got something that's, 8 or 9 inches across that hasn't been perforated yet, and maybe you can use that for industrial purposes, or like I said, you can make like ring plates to like go fight a dragon because it would give you fire protection or something along those lines.
I like that. Mm-hmm.
Or possibly even you could take this chemical compound and refine it to the point where it becomes almost like a musk. It's something that you would put on to disguise, to cover your own scent, to make it safer to travel through the swamp.
Yes. Or you could just make alchemist's fire.
Or that.
I also wonder if they are invasive here, that if there's some sort of like reward for
it could
rounding
just
them
simply
up.
be a bounty.
Yeah. Maybe the swamp has become a fire swamp, and you are trying to eradicate these things.
Yeah, they've eaten all the ROUSs.
Exactly.
A whole swamp on fire is terrifying.
Well, I mean, you'd have a lot of that, the natural gases from like the methane from the breakdown of the plants and stuff, and you've got these critters going through, and which would make their eruptions even more so, because if it's that, and then it hits a gas pocket on top of everything else. I do like the bounty idea, is that they are trying to eradicate these things to reclaim their territory or their area. I think that fits really well.
Yeah.
All right, James, do you want to roll the second one, or do you want me to roll the second one?
I'll let you go ahead and roll it. My stuff is bagged up as I had a D&D session on Sunday. So,
all right, let's see what we got. 34.
Okay.
34 is... Oh, dear.
Oh, no.
Has superhuman intelligence.
Jesus Christ.
Yes, it's a hive mind. We achieved hive mind. Yes. And this is how they're taking over. Slowly but surely, they are going to scour the world with flame.
Why are they always like this? The last one had intelligence too. Oh, no.
I love it.
Oof. Oh, that's the fact that they can like plan and strategize about... they could intentionally set fires places.
The fact that they know the people have a bounty on them and are hunting and killing the young for profit, they are now angry about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, assuming that their thoughts are even on the same sort of level as ours.
Yes.
Yeah.
With superhuman intelligence, they're from the far realms. They could be thinking in a completely different dimension of thought.
This is also true.
It could be non-linear.
Yeah.
I hate that.
I mean, there are so many things that this could play out as.
I wonder if they are kind of hive mind-like. I bet they can communicate between planes. Like, I bet there's more of them still in the far realms, and that they are actually actively communicating with them.
I will share with you both 2 words that were put together that are 2 of the most terrifying things when they are put together. Cosmic indifference.
Oh, yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so basically what we have here is like the equivalent of a Shoggoth.
Yeah.
It's that sort of creature that their thought processes are on such a different, just exponentially different level of thought that they are incomprehensible.
I love it.
And they almost seem unintelligent because we just can't grok how they think.
I love it. Yes.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
All right.
Ooh.
Bad to make them angry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cosmic indifference is preferable, I would think.
Yes. Yeah, cosmic indifference would be preferable on that one. All right, let's recap what we've got. So, they swim, they feed on insects and vermin, they're huge in size. So from a D&D aspect, that is between 16 and 32 feet.
God.
So they are big.
Wow, okay.
They're organized in gangs of 11 to 25. We have established that it is one large adult and many smaller spawn.
Mm-hmm.
They are native to swamps. They have a burning chemical spray as their defense mechanism. They're aberrations. They are mimics, so are capable of appearing as another species in their native environment. Individuals can be used as currency, valued at 1d10 gold per individual, and they have superhuman intelligence. So what do we call them?
I'm leaning something towards like a fire rock. Again, because these are... I don't know. Because we've also built some lore up for these things, too, because they have that clacky sound, and they might scream at times, especially elder ones, with the wind traveling through the carapace.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Oh, like a lava screamer.
Yeah, screaming shell, something.
They sit there, they have that chemical eruption.
Yeah.
They are definitely invasive, and so they're not going to have a cute, fluffy name. They're probably going to give them something that sounds somewhat villainous.
Yeah, agreed with that.
So not Scuttlebutt?
You know what? I do like Scuttlebutt. Yeah, you know what?
Scuttlebutt is
good. Sometimes you have to laugh at the horror. Scuttlebutt wins.
The cosmic, unknowable being Scuttlebutt.
Yes! Well done, Ian. I tip my hat to you on that one. Well done.
All right. Well, once again, that was a ton of fun.
Yes.
Yeah, that was great.
So here at the end, to wrap things up, Sam, I'm going to give the floor back to you. Where can we go to find Death of the Author, and how can we throw money at you for your project?
Sure. So Death of the Author is crowdfunding on BackerKit from May 14th through May 28th. So you can find it on there. You can find it by just searching for Death of the Author BackerKit. Should be the first thing that comes up. And aside from that, my other games can be found at blinkingbirchgames.itch.io. So Anamnesis and Outliers. Outliers is on For Horizons co-op page, but I think I have a link to it on mine as well.
Excellent. And I will make sure to include links to both your itch page and to the backer kit in the show notes.
Thanks. Thanks so much for having me on here, guys.
No, thanks for joining us.
It's great to have you back.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, both times it's been a delight. So thank you so much.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us and listening tonight. If you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas, send us an email, undercommontaste@gmail.com, or come and join our Discord. You can find a link to the Discord in our show notes. By the time this episode comes out, undercommontaste.com should be live.
That's exciting.
We finally got the website done.
Congrats.
I say we like I did anything more than just pick some pictures. So we're still working on a couple of different aspects to actually get some more of our content hosted on our website, but you can find links to all of our social media, links to our itch store, links to our Patreon. You can find all of that undercommontaste.com. Now I don't have to go through the whole spiel, which I am all for.
That said, we are on YouTube and TikTok and Discord. TikTok and Discord is probably where you contact us easiest, but we would love to hear from you. If this is your first time listening, we're super glad you found us. As always, give us a rating and review. This helps increase our visibility and lets us know what you want to hear more of.
Stay safe, everyone, and we will see you all again in 2 weeks.
Happy gaming.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Undercommon Taste. Our theme song is Massacre Ann, written and performed by Mary Kroll and used with permission. You can find Mary online at marykroll.bandcamp.com or on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Mary C. Kroll. Our logo is by David Sutherland. You can find more of David's work on deviantart.com/David Sutherland or on instagram.com/Willex_73. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so stay safe, and we'll see you then.